Good morning. Welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Monday, October the 6th, 2025. And we went from 15 degrees this time yesterday to 5 degrees this morning. So that's the Macedon Ranges weather for you. Crazy, well, Victorian weather for you, isn't it? And Victoria actually, speaking of that, will be a little bit of mourning this morning, I suppose. The dragging their lips because the Melbourne Storm went down to the Brisbane Broncos last night. Not that, look, I'll be honest, not that many people in Melbourne would really care. They're all still just probably interested in trade week for the AFL and wouldn't be too stressed, I wouldn't have thought. But there is a very big NRL contingent in Victoria now, and I'm sure, those fans will be feeling it today. But anyway, commiseration. I didn't actually watch the game, by the way, but commiserations to the Melbourne Storm, and congratulations to the Broncos. They got momentum at the right time of year and got the job done. So anyway, good on the Broncos. All right, on to some boxing. On this day, come here, man. Come here, buddy. We'll keep going this way. On this day back in 2007, and Manny Pacquiao won a 12-round decision over Marco Antonio Barrera for the world, I think it was 130-pound title, I think it was, at the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. So that's what happened on this day in 2007. Not a lot of other stuff going on, to be honest, and that's probably what brings me to the topic of today. And I've sort of covered everything ad nauseum in the last sort of couple of weeks. It's sort of, I've gone over the Tim Tszyu situation numerous times and Nikita versus Michael numerous times, all the other stuff going on in the world at the moment, the Zuffa and Crawford, Canelo, you name it. So I thought we'd just sort of change tack today and do something a little bit different. And especially in light of the week's been sort of celebrated as the 50-year anniversary of the Thriller in Manila with Ali and Fraser. So I thought I would do a little bit of an episode on the biggest rivalries in not Australian boxing, world boxing history. I did do a separate one on the Australian rivalries, but I'll do one today on the worldwide top 10 rivalries of all time. Now, it's not as easy as what you would think, because you've got genuine, spiteful rivalries, and then you've just got rivalries that they're okay out of the ring but just fierce rivals inside the ring. So then you've got others that were a bit of both. You've got both that were fierce outside the ring and inside the ring as well. So we'll go through them. I'm sure there'll be conjecture and some pushback from some people about the order, but anyway, I'll give it my best shot anyway. And as I said, it's not that easy to do. Well, there may be top two or three sort of chose themselves, but we'll see how we go. Actually, I think, where am I? I'll get my list out here. Let's start with, where are we? We'll go to, all right, so starting from number 10, we'll work our way downwards. And as I said, just bear with me as far as the intensity of the rivalries inside and outside the ring, or compared to inside to outside the ring. So we'll start with Evander Holyfield, Riddick Bowe. So I think 1992 was the first time they fought, and Riddick Bowe won the world heavyweight title with a unanimous decision over the real deal Holyfield, who just, I think, won that title from Douglas. And he might have defended it against Foreman, didn't he? There might have been another one in there as well. But either way, Riddick Bowe won the first fight. Evander Holyfield would then the following year win the rematch. So he would take the title back with a points win. And then in the third fight, Riddick Bowe would then win the rubber match and regain the title. I think that was 95, I think it was. And I'm not sure which one was the Fan Man. Was it the third one? I can't remember. But of course, who can forget the Fan Man? I think it might have been the third one, I think, because Bowe won, I think. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That, in my opinion, is the number 10 ranked rivalry, because, look, savage fights in the ring, really brutal type of fights, but the facts of the matter are, outside the ring, there wasn't really that spitefulness, I suppose, that genuine sort of dislike for each other. Evander, I mean, no one really could get too mad at Vander Holyfield, could they? Because he didn't really get into all the pre-fight trash talk and all the rest of it. So that is number 10. Number 9, I've gone for Israel Vasquez and Rafael Marquez. Now, these guys fought 4 times over the journey of, I think, only a couple of years. Actually, I think the first 3 might have been over the course of a year or two, and the fourth one was a few years later, I think. But I was actually fortunate enough to be at the first fight. This was at the Home Depot Center in Carson, California. I'm not sure what it's called these days. It was a StubHub Center. Now I'm sure it's something else. But Marquez actually won that first fight by stoppage. Then Israel Vasquez would then win the next 2 fights, and then Rafael Marquez would win the 4th fight. I'm pretty sure it might have been 4 or 5 years later, but really vicious fights. But outside the ring, they had a lot of respect for each other, as Mexican fighters do. There wasn't that real dislike for each other. It was just on in the ring. So I've got that as number 9. Number 8. Now, this is, I think, outside the ring, probably the most spiteful, but inside the ring, only one of the 3 fights really delivered. I'm referring to Vinny Pazienza and Greg Haugen. The guys genuinely disliked each other. They hated each other. The first fight especially was very, very spiteful. Greg Haugen actually travelled to Providence, Rhode Island, which was Vinny Pazienza's hometown, to fight him in that first fight, and Pazienza would win that fight. And even though the rivalry continued outside the ring for the next 2, they didn't really deliver. Pazienza won the next 2 fights. The second one especially was probably lackluster decision. The third one wasn't much better. So it probably loses a few points, this one, because of that fact. That the second and third fights weren't really that great. But outside the ring, and even to the point where recently Vinny Pazienza was asked to comment on Greg Haugen, who tragically, he passed away. It was a year or 2 ago, I think it was, and of cancer, I think it was, and he still had that disdain for him. It shows you how deep-rooted it was, that even in death, that Vinny Pazienza wasn't a fan of Greg Haugen. So that is number 8. Now, number 7, I've gone for Chris Eubank Sr. and Nigel Benn. Now, the thing with all these other fights, there are a minimum of 3 fights. I've made an exception for this one being only 2 fights, because I think the rivalry or the spitefulness that occurred at the time and continues to this day through their sons, I had to make an exception to put this in there. So the first fight in 1990 was a win to Chris Eubank, and the second fight was a draw, I think, 3 years later, and a lot of people thought Nigel Benn actually won that fight. So I don't know why there wasn't a third fight between the 2. You would have thought it would have been big money. I'm sure there are circumstances that came up, and I'm sure someone out there will tell me what those circumstances were, but just a vicious, vicious rivalry between the 2 guys. In the ring, the fights measured up as well, but I've had to sort of penalise it just a little bit because there was only 2 fights, where all the other rivalries, as I said, were at least 3 fights. All right, number 6 on the list is Manny Pacquiao and Juan Manuel Marquez. Now, these 2 fought 4 times, and who can forget that first one? Well, actually, who can forget all the fights, but especially the first one where Juan Manuel Marquez was dropped, was it 3 times, if not 4? I think it was 3 in the first round, and then came back to salvage a draw. So I don't know why. Obviously, must have been a sanctioning body thing that Marquez could get dropped 3 times and not be stopped, because I think pretty much the rule these days is if it's 3 knockdowns, it's all over, or is it? Because I think Tim Tszyu was dropped 3 times, so it might be an IBF thing. I don't know, but either way, he was dropped 3 times in the first round and came back to get a draw. And to think that he would have been 4 points down after the first round, it would have been a 10-6 round on most judges' scorecards. To come back and actually get a draw was a unbelievable result. There actually a lot of people thought he actually won the fight. So the 2 would then fight another 3 times. Manny Pacquiao would win 2, we'll say disputed decisions. Especially the third one, I thought that Marquez might have done enough to win. But Manny got both of those decisions. Then in 2012, in a fight that I was actually at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Juan Manuel Marquez would get his revenge in the best possible way with an unbelievable 6th round knockout of Manny Pacquiao. And I still remember that night in the arena. I thought the roof was going to lift off. It was just crazy. So that was the 4th fight. Now, there was talk even of a 5th fight, but Marquez said, you know what? I've got the ultimate revenge now on Pacquiao. I'm going to walk away, and it doesn't matter how much money you throw at me. I'm not going to take it. I'm going to let Manny live with this for the rest of his life, that I got the upper hand in the last fight and knocked him out in a definitive way. So now, the thing is, as always with Manny's rivalries, I suppose, they get watered down a little bit because he's just not that type of guy who gets caught up in all the hoo-ha, I suppose, and the trash talking and the pushing and shoving and all that sort of stuff. Marquez tried to needle him a lot, especially trying to get the 4th fight with him. I think he wore T-shirts that said, I've beaten Manny Pacquiao 3 times, even though he'd lost to him 3 times. 2 and a draw. But it was sort of one-way traffic as far as that real spitefulness goes. So probably loses a few points there. But 4 unbelievable fights between Manny Pacquiao and Juan Manuel Marquez. Number 5, I've got Marco Antonio Barrera and Erik Morales. These guys had 3 epic fights. Morales won the first fight. Barrera won the next 2. And these guys, they get extra points, actually. They don't lose any. They get extra points for the absolute spitefulness that these guys had. And it was unusual, being that both fighters were Mexican. Normally, the Mexican fighters would have respect for each other. They always loathed fighters from other countries, but amongst themselves, even when they fought each other, they would have that respect, but not with these two. Barrera and Morales hated each other, even to the point, I think, and I think they're all right these days, but when they first started the Box Fan Expo in Las Vegas, they normally do it in September, normally on the day of a Mayweather or Canelo or Pacquiao fight, or whatever it might be. And they had to separate the booths between the two of them because the spitefulness or the rivalry was still there. And I think they're pretty good now. I remember when we went to Vegas about 6 years ago, one of the friends that I was over there with actually got a photo with both of them together and faced off with both of them at the same time as well. So it was a really good night. And as I said, I think it's I won't say they're friends, but they have a sort of that mutual respect for each other now anyway. So that is Barrera and Morales at number 5. Number 4, I had, where are we? Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran. Now these guys, 3 unbelievable. Well, no, I'll take that back. They weren't unbelievable fights. The first one was an unbelievable fight, and this is probably when both guys were at their absolute peak. Sugar Ray Leonard, the welterweight champion, Roberto Duran coming up from lightweight. I always thought that Duran came straight from lightweight to welterweight, but he didn't. He actually had a few tune-up fights before he went up, so he was prepared. And he was always probably more a natural sort of 140 to 147 pounder anyway. He always struggled with the 135 pound division weight limit. But that fight in Canada, Montreal, Canada, you could see in that fight just what it meant to Duran and how much he hated Leonard. Even after the fight was over, Leonard went to shake his hand. He brushed it off and called his wife some pretty bad names. And gave the bird and everything to the crowd, all Leonard's part of the crowd, and it was definitely spiteful from Duran's end. And they would fight, of course, the following year, or was it the same year, but later in the year, whatever it was, but in New Orleans, I think it was, and the infamous no mask fight where Duran quit. And this is probably why it takes away, or loses a few points anyway, from in the ratings here, because the second and third fights weren't great for obvious reasons. The second one being the no must fight, but then the third one really was a fizzer. I think it was at the Mirage in '89, I think it was. And I mean, look, I don't begrudge them making the fight, because Duran was coming off that unbelievable win over Iran Barkley for the world middleweight title. Leonard was still a name. He'd fought Donnie Lalonde the previous year and won the 168 and 175 pound WBC title. So I can understand why they made it, but on the night it just didn't really deliver. So this, well, it depends on whether it loses points or gains points for the rivalry outside the ring, but loses it for inside the ring. I don't know. But the first fight especially was unbelievable, and they really did have an unbelievable sort of feud going for a lot of years. I'm pretty sure they're okay now with each other. So that was number 4. Number 3 is now I'm sure, or there'll probably be some that will surprise us, not number 1, but Mickey Ward and Arturo Gatti. Now, this is number 3. Well, who can forget the 3 fights I had? 3 fights in a row, I think it was. Mickey Ward won the first one, and Gatti won the next 2. This one, it's number 3 because I think as far as the quality of the fights goes, you could argue 100% that it's number 1, but these guys actually had a very healthy respect for each other outside the ring. They realised that they had a chemistry amongst themselves that when they fought, just magic happened. And I think they loved the fact that each other were very, they were traditional type of fighters. They got in there and just gave it their all, and I think they respected that about each other. So there wasn't really that feud outside the ring, but yeah, definitely inside the ring. This is probably why it is ranked number 3, because outside the ring, nowhere near a rivalry, but inside the ring, probably the best set of trilogy fights you'll ever see. Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward, and it's great that I think at one stage Mickey Ward actually trained Arturo Gatti. They were great mates until, unfortunately, of course, Arturo Gatti died. But to this day, Mickey Ward, just a very revered figure in boxing. And the interesting thing about this was that at the time they fought, Arturo Gatti, I think he was a former world champion. He was a very renowned world-class fighter, still in the rankings. Mickey Ward was just seen as a club fighter, a very up-and-down career. And that when they first fight, it was just, well, we'll just keep Arturo busy and give him Mickey Ward. That'll sort of keep him happy. And I don't think anyone sort of realised what would happen in that fight. And of course, Mickey Ward upset Arturo Gatti in that fight. And then it was like, all right, well, we need to get revenge. The second fight couldn't possibly be any better than the first fight. Well, it was. And of course, the third fight after that, we just had 3 absolute rippers between those 2 guys. So I've got it at number 3 because the rivalry is more inside than outside, but what a set of fights these 2 put on together. So that is Mickey Ward and Arturo Gatti. Then we go to number 2 on the list, and I've got Sugar Ray Robinson and Jake LaMotta. Now, these guys fought 6 times. Ray Robinson, or Sugar Ray, won the first one. Jake LaMotta won the second one, and then Sugar Ray would win the 4th, or the next 4 fights, including the 4th fight where he actually stopped Jake LaMotta. I think it was in the 13th round in the Valentine's Day Massacre. But it has to be number 2. The fact they fought 6 times, and I reckon it might have been the 3rd or 2nd and 3rd fights where they fought, or the 3rd and 4th, whatever it was, where they fought 3 weeks apart. Just amazing to think that was the case. I think it was, I can't remember whether it was after. I think it was after. Might have been the 2nd and 3rd, where Jake LaMotta won the 2nd fight, and they fought 3 weeks later, and Sugar Ray won the 3rd fight. So I think that's what happened. But an amazing set of fights between the 2. And as I said, Sugar Ray got the final victory with that stoppage win over the Bronx Bull, Jake LaMotta. But what a rivalry that was, Sugar Ray and Jake LaMotta. And then the number 1 rival, I think, is undisputed. It is Muhammad Ali and Smoking Joe Frazier. Now, this easily wins, I think, the number 1 position, because we had the rivalry inside the ring as far as just 3. Well, actually, it was only sort of 2 unbelievable fights. The second one was a bit of a fizzer, but outside the ring, that rivalry as well. Well, to the public anyway. There was rumours, and I think it's actually sort of shown in the movie of Ali, that they did have a friendship outside the ring that was never made public. Frazier actually offered to give him some money. He just said, look, just make sure you come back and we fight, and offered to help him out. So I'm pretty sure they did become friendly years later. I mean, how could you not have respect for each other after those fights? And the first fight, of course, Muhammad Ali coming back from 3 years out of the ring. Joe Frazier, the champion, beat him in that first fight. The second fight, as I said, was a bit of a fizzer at Madison Square Garden. Ali won that fight clearly. And then the third fight, the Thriller in Manila, which is what we're all celebrating in the last sort of week or so, where Muhammad Ali stopped. Well, he didn't stop Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier retired in his corner after 14 rounds. And Muhammad Ali walked away with a 2-1 score out of that rivalry. But I think it's a clear number one because, as I said, not only did it measure up inside the ring, but it also measured up outside the ring. So as always, guys, give me your thoughts. What do you think? Have I got it right? I'll just quickly go through them again. So at number 10, I had Bo Holyfield, 9 Vasquez Marquez, 8 Pazienza Haugen, 7 Eubank and Ben, 6 Pacquiao Marquez, 5 Barrera Morales, 4, actually I've got that wrong, sorry, 10 Bo Holyfield, 9 Vasquez Marquez, 8 Pazienza Haugen, 7 Eubank Ben, 6 Pacquiao Marquez, 5 Barrera Morales. I think I missed one there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't know what I've done there. I'll go the opposite way. 1, Ali Fraser. 2, Robinson LaMotta. 3, Gatti Ward. 4, Leonard Duran. 5, Barrera Morales. 6, Pacquiao Marquez. 7, Eubank Ben. 8, Pazienza Haugen. 9, Vasquez Marquez. 10, Bo Holyfield. Geez, how did I ever get through high school, eh? Can't even count backwards. Anyway, you get the gist anyway. So give me your thoughts, guys. As always, I love to hear your comments and remarks, but that's my top 10 rivalries of all time. Give me your thoughts and have an awesome Monday. Hope you recovered well after the weekend footy, and we'll catch you tomorrow.